Welcome to Surrender School.
Serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And welcome to Surrender School. Welcome. If you'd like to donate, you can go to Surrender School's webpage, and the donate button is pretty easy to use. There's a WhatsApp group, so if you like that sort of thing, and then if anybody wants to do any service, especially since this is the last of the 12 steps, then go ahead and but I think everybody here is already doing service, and so there we go. We're gonna get us started into that, right? So last week of this 12, we're at 12. I'm so excited. Sorry about the cars going through. This is the state highway, so we're going to hear a lot of cars today. So we're at step 12, and this is from the 12 and 12 from OA. So we're going to be actually today reading from the 12 and 12, the OA 12 and 12, the AA 12 and 12, and the big book in working with others. I went to a retreat that was all weekend about working with others. This person was passionate about working with others. He was passionate about doing service, and of course, it was at a time whenever I was not. And so it always seems like you are ending up being at that place where somebody's telling you, "Oh, but do service," whenever you don't want to do, you want to actually do less. And that was the way it was. So I'm going to be quoting a lot from him because he was genius in he's like, some people don't want to hear about, yeah, I have a full-time job and I've got kids and I've got a family and I've got all this other stuff. And so you know what? You're going to get drunk again, or you're going to eat again, or you're going to go and do this again unless you do service. And a lot of people are really hesitant to hear that. And they're hesitant to receive that because maybe honestly they can't at this moment. So I really hope to emulate him in that, and just give you some really good tips today about how to do service. So step 12 is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We tried to carry this message to compulsive overeaters and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So sometimes we do get, or I and my guilt and shame get stuck in carrying the message to compulsive overeaters, and I'm really not thinking about how to practice these principles in all of my affairs. And that's a two-part thing. And as a matter of fact, me and my friend, because my friend is in recovery, we're on this trip. She's been amazing. We've been talking about this. And we've been talking about how sometimes it's actually an addictive process. We feel, that's just me. Sometimes I can feel addictive to take on too much service. It can feel addictive to me. And instead, I need to shift to practicing these principles in all my affairs. So, one of the things that I love about working with others and about seeing others' lives is that I get to see your miracle. When I'm stuck in the food and I'm at home and I'm eating and I'm in my room and I'm in a fog of whatever, I don't get to see any person's miracles. And I'll tell you, it's hard for me to see my own. I am blind to my own miracle. So one of you may look at me and may say, "Oh yeah, we remember whenever you used to do this." And yet I forget. I'm like, have I grown any? Have I done anything? Am I still stuck? And it's you that reminds me that I'm not. And that's the great thing about working with others is I get to see your miracles. And I will tell you guys, I have seen some of the most beautiful miracles from doing service that I would have not gotten to see. And in that is my higher power. In that is my higher power. And so what it says in the 12 and 12 is it says that on page 81, for most of us, the central, and this is the OA 12 and 12, for most of us, the central factor in this spiritual awakening. So it says, by the time you've gotten to step 12, you have had a spiritual awakening. And when you're new, you're like, what is that? And we can go on these major searches for spiritual awakenings. And, and never quite seem to find him. And they tell us and actually in all of these books, they say by the time you've gotten to 12, you've had some sort of spiritual awakening. Even if you don't want to believe it, even if you don't think you have. Just the fact that you've gotten this far, we've been these 12 weeks together, maybe that in itself is its own thing. So it's been our decision to trust a higher power with every aspect of our lives. And acting on that decision one day at a time, we've learned a whole new set of skills for living, skills that enable us to clear from our lives everything that might interfere with our trust in this higher power. Now we know we don't have to fear anything that comes to us. Even when challenges happen as they do in life, we know we have a way of sanely facing each situation. We have seen that our higher power will reveal something of value to us with every experience as long as we continue to practice these spiritual principles. And I love this. Okay, you guys, I am out here. I am in Lake Texoma. I'm at a state park. Okay. When I agreed to take on this 12-step study, I was really afraid. And what I was afraid of is because I'm a selfish MF. Y'all fill in the blank. I am the most selfish person in the whole wide world. And I was like, well, but what if something fun comes up and it's Saturday and it's at noon. And I knew that I was called to do this for whatever reason. And so I had to honor that service position and I had to walk through the fear of the FOMO, the fear of missing out. I had to walk through that fear that what if something happens? What if somebody asked me to do something at noon on Saturday and I'm already doing this and I need to clear. And I love how this says that that we have seen our higher power will reveal something of value to us with every experience as long as we continue to practice these spiritual principles. So what I did was I said yes, even though I was really worried. I mean, I was really worried that something would come up in these 3 months that I would really want to do and I wouldn't be able to because I'm selfish and I want to do what I want to do. And that's the way we all feel about service, right? Whether it's taking a position at a meeting or whether I have a lot of friends who drive people to a meeting because they can't. And it's like, well, that's going to cost gas. And, I could go on and on about how selfish I am with taking people to do things, right? And so what I got to see is that, yes, in the middle of this, about 5 weeks ago, a friend of mine texts me and she says, what does she say? She says, hey, listen, Amber, I'm going to tell you, I have a cabin in Lake Texoma. I've paid for 4 days and it's the weekend of the 17th or the 20th. And I want you to come along, pray about it. And there was no fear. There was just, I'm going to go. I don't know if there's any Wi Fi. I don't exactly know who's gonna be able to get on the meeting and sign in. Well, I don't wanna say any names because 'cause we're on YouTube, but a friend of mine who's here on the right of me in the little box, we talked last week where I was like, "And by the way, could you help me try to navigate whether without any Wi-Fi, I can come here and I can do this thing." And so thank you, and that's service, right? I mean, it's all service. And what my friend and I were talking is she said, even if you want to retract, because maybe you're that person that has done so much service. So we're at the shifting, we're kind of on the other end. And she says that it can be anything, service can be anything. So that's why I want to shift to now the big book. And so a friend of mine said at a meeting, he says, we were talking about chapter 7. We were talking about working with others. And he says, and I'm gonna wait till this card goes back so y'all can really hear it. He says, when I feel poured into, I have a different experience. And we have these meetings on Surrender School, and I've been poured into by the person, again, I won't say the name, but the person on my left screen, I've been poured into because she spent 30 days every night doing this huge intensive workshop that was amazing. And by the end of it, I felt connected. I felt poured into. I had a different experience. Um, and another person said that I am uniquely suited to help when no one else can. So that's the big book. That's what the big book says. The big book says, I have a personal problem that someone else also has, and nobody else can explain exactly how to walk through that. And maybe that's all we're doing is holding each other's hand and walking through that. And I guarantee that when I was eating ice cream, well, I didn't do that, but I really didn't. I had weird behaviors with food. But let's say I was to have an entire gallon of ice cream every night for dinner. Let's say that that's what I was doing with my particular. You think I could have woken up and poured into someone else? You think I could have been uniquely suited to help someone else when first of all, milk makes me sad. So I'm going to wake up and be crying. Am I going to help you? Absolutely. That's the truth. I'm not. So this is the thing that I wanted to I'm going to look at my time here. I wanted to be like to enlighten someone if someone didn't know this, like I didn't know this, was to have no agenda. To have no agenda. If you have an agenda, read Working with Others. And I'm talking about if you have an agenda at work, if you have an agenda with your partner, if you have an agenda with your friend, your best friend. I'm going to tell you, I learned, I took vacations with my husband, and we have taken vacations for 20 something years. And that man slaved like a dog to make me happy and never could. That poor guy, he could never make me happy. I learned from you guys to stop expecting anything. And now I've taken a vacation, like my vacations with my friends are, I have no expectation. None whatsoever. I don't have any agenda. I have no expectation. I don't, I take myself out of it because she's the one who gets us in a lot of problems. She gets us in trouble. So I'm going to read page 90. So when you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. If he doesn't want to stop drinking, don't waste your time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. This advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing that they are sick. They are dealing with a sick person too. If there's any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. You need this information to put yourself in his place to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. And so when I went to this big retreat that was all about working with others when I didn't want to work with anybody, and by the way, I've never had anybody that's like I've had a couple people that called to for me to sponsor. I am people don't want me to sponsor them. That is the honest truth, I guess, because nobody ever asked me. So when I went to this retreat, nobody had asked me to be a sponsor ever. Like I was raising my hands at every meeting and sponsors, what's your name and what's your phone number? Amber, and I'd give my phone number. Nobody ever calls me. But I see the people that do get called all the time and the people that everybody wants to be their sponsors. And those are people, honestly, that I would have to say seem to have their shit together more than I do. Yeah, they seem to have it all together. And I'm like, oh, okay, there we go. That's it. So at the time when I went to this retreat, he says, don't have an agenda. Are you just a friend? to the suffering compulsive overeater or the suffering whatever we are suffering, just the person that wakes up cranky. Are you a are you someone? And he said, I have to get out of me to empathize with another person. I do not know if I'm going to hang up on myself, and I hope I don't, but I've got the funniest little thing that I hope um to share with y'all, okay? So I was reading, I have these um little readers that I read every day, and it's called Listen. And it says, "Do you know why we have two ears and one mouth? We're supposed to listen twice as much as we talk." And that's anonymous, but a girl in my home group says that. And it says, "A successful psychiatrist saw 8 patients a day and obtained excellent results. Each patient would walk out of his office with a smile and give the doctor a warm handshake. Many observers speculated on the secret of his success, but only his secretary knew it. At the end of each day, he would call her on the intercom and tell her, 'Okay, Cindy, you can bring me my hearing aid now.'" And I absolutely think that that's the cutest thing ever, right? He was intently listening, really hearing, and all of his clients thought he was the best psychiatrist ever. What did they want? They just wanted to be listened to. So when we're sitting there thinking, well, what, I don't really have anything to offer, what kind of service would be of, you know what? For me, sometimes the highest metaphysical being I am is one that just shuts up and listens. And that honestly is the hardest. I mean, sitting here and, pontificating over my knowledge of my small little knowledge of the big book, that's fun, right? It's super fun to be heard and seen and whatever. It is not always fun to be sitting listening to somebody. Um, so that's just, my experience. But okay, so the 12 steps in the 12 and 12, and then I have a story at the end, and then I will oh no, it's only 12, 18. Okay. So step 12, this is the AA 12 and 12. So I'm going to remind us again what the step 12 is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, which is all the rest of the 11. This is a big thing we've done. This is a thing we do over and over and over again. My sponsor was so gracious in telling me that it was not a once and done. And I think we are really filled with grace when we let other people, like the newcomer comes to us, and we are, I think, really gracious when we say, and by the way, the 12 steps are not going to fix all your life. And they are going to help a lot of your problems, and they're going to transform, and you will have the 9 step promises come true at some point or whatever. But it's just maybe not exactly how you think it's going to go. So, page 106 in the AA 12 and 12, the joy of living is the theme of AA's 12 step, and action is its key. Here we turn outward towards our fellow alcoholics who are still in distress. Here we experience the kind of giving that asks no rewards. Here we are we begin to practice all 12 steps of the program in our daily lives so that we and those about us may find emotional sobriety. When the 12th step is seen in its full application, it's really talking about the kind of love that has no price tag on it. And wow, my friend said, do I expect to receive something? Right? I mean, we're human. Bill W. wrote this, and we know through some other, we know that we all expect something a little bit behind, like our higher power is going to give us something. We get a goodie. What is my goodie out of it? And yet I guess everybody that's done service knows that we don't always get goodies. There's sometimes no goodies. And as a matter of fact, sometimes it can be a real baddie. You try to do service to somebody and or whatever. It may not actually be the way that you interpret it to be. And that is okay too. So on page 110, on it says, nor is this the only kind of 12 step work, right? And I want to like so be clear that that your 12 step work, maybe you should sit and pray with your own concept of your higher power as to what that should be. Because if one feels really nasty and sticky, if you're doing something and it feels nasty and sticky, and you're like, maybe I should get to pray and maybe I should figure out how to reassess what that is. So we sit in an AA meeting and listen, not only to receive something ourselves, but to give the reassurance and support which our presence can bring. If our turn comes to speak at a meeting, we again try to carry AA's message, whether our audience is one or many, it's still 12 step work. There are many opportunities, even for those of us who feel unable to speak at meetings, who are so situated that we cannot do much face to face 12 step work. We can be the ones who take on the unspectacular but important tasks that make good 12 step work possible, perhaps arranging for coffee and cake after meetings. And a friend of mine, she said, I'll take that service position, like for the cake. She's like, I'll take the cake service position. Give that to me. Where so many skeptical, suspicious newcomers have found confidence and comfort in the laughter and talk. This is the 12 step work in the very best sense of the word. Freely ye have received, freely give is the core part of step 12. And, I will quote this like a little parrot, that self-esteem comes from esteemable acts. Like, I want somebody to give me self-esteem. Oh, Amber has lowest self-esteem. So could I pay someone to give me some self-esteem? I'll pay. I'll get the big package for the self-esteem package. And yet, all these genius people who are doing all these studies have told us that really you got to get down to the dirty work and do some esteemable acts to get self-esteem. And you're like, oh, I don't want to because that's too hard, or that makes me uncomfortable, or I'm an introvert, which I am. Like, I don't want to do that one. And yet, that is the thing that gives us confidence. And I think that I was just praying on this yesterday. Like, I'm starting to really question all of the things that I once did believe about food or about weight or about what I look like. I don't think that matters anymore. I don't, I'm starting to question these things, and I'm like, well, is my whole thing not just about low self-esteem? Is some of it just about low self-esteem? I obviously wouldn't have done what I used to do with food if I'd had good self-esteem. And so maybe doing these things for others stops me from being so hard on myself, and also seeing other people's journeys of, one of my favorite people is somebody that can seriously eat salad compulsively. I mean, we're talking about with nothing on it. We're just talking about lettuce. And I love that. Do I not love that? To learn that this is a unique disease that some of us have, that it presents itself very differently. And I cannot expect the way that my disease to present myself as the way that it presents to you. It presents very differently, but it's also fascinating to learn about who we are. So we may often, and this is on page 111, we may often pass through 12-step experience where we will seem to be temporarily off the beam. These will appear as big setbacks at the time, but will be seen later as stepping stones to better things. For example, we may set our hearts on getting a particular person sobered up, and after doing all we can for months, we see him relapse. Perhaps this will happen in a succession of cases, and we may be deeply discouraged as to our ability to carry AA's message. Or we may encounter the reverse situation in which we're highly elated because we seem to be successful. Here, the temptation is to become rather possessive of the newcomers. Perhaps we try to give them advice about their affairs, which we are really competent to give or ought not give at all. Then we're hurt and confused when the advice is rejected or when it is accepted and brings greater confusion. By a great deal of ardent 12-step work, we sometimes carry the message to so many alcoholics that they place us in a position of trust. They make us, let us say, the group's chairman. Here again, we are presented with the temptation to overmanage things, and sometimes this results in rebuffs and other consequences which are hard to take. And I love that. I really do. I mean, like anybody who has done some 12-step work for any amount of time can resonate on some level, maybe not exactly what he's talking about. And we know that these early AAers, they brought their service work was sometimes bringing an alcoholic that was still suffering into their home and sobering them up. Have I ever done that? Although I will have to tell you a fun thing, guys, is that I have had a vision, right, of something in the future, but a vision of a home that allows like a woman with, you know, 3 or 4 kids who's still in the food to come and rest for a couple weeks. Just, like a place to keep her safe. Not safe, not like a safe home, that's not my jam, but like somebody who is truly struggling only with the food, but to get her away from her situation to maybe have like a room or something really nice that she can sober up, because we don't talk about sobering up in the food. We don't talk about that enough. I mean, uh I did not have 5 kids, and I did not have all these responsibilities or whatever. So that has been my heart. And maybe that's something for us all to think about. Like, what does our heart say? Our services. My friend that I'm here with says, yeah, she said every meeting you ever go to, their agenda for what service is going to be based on their needs. She's like, so you go to one meeting and it's this, or another thing and it's this, but do we ever go into ourselves? And do we ever say, okay, what internally is that need that we have? And my friend who's here today at her 30-day workshop, I loved how she said, go out and have time with God. If it's 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, go have that time where you and God talk, right? That's you and God. Y'all talk about what service positions you need to do. You ask I guarantee you ask me, because I am a chair of a service position at my group. You ask me, well, Amber, what do you think I should do as far as service positions? You can help me. That's what you can do. That's what I'm going to give you the task to do. I'm not going to say go pray about it. I'm going to be like, and by the way, and then the last thing that I was going to say that I'm called to say before our meditation is that I was sitting there talking about listening, and I'm not a good listener, so that's maybe why I should say this. But last week, we had a workshop, and it was long, and I'm an introvert, and I like my alone time, and I like quiet, and I like nature. And I knew that seriously, I was going to be on from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. There was intergroup, it was half the day, and the workshop, and then, it was just an intense day. And you guys teach me how to do that, and thank God. What did I do? Someone else took over the service position of this 12-step meeting. I jumped on it right in the middle just to be present to my commitment, and that was exactly what I needed. And then after it was all over, I was done, and one of the very most people I love in the world was sitting with another person at like 5:30, and she had a flat tire in the parking lot, okay? And my friend lives much farther. I live very close to the home group. And so I told her, "Go ahead and you go home because I know you have something to do. I will stay with the person who has a flat tire." And my service, honestly, was done. I was 100% service. No more service wanted to be done. I actually wanted to eat. I was hungry. It was almost 6 o'clock. I was starving. And I'm in a compulsive overeating workshop, and I need to eat like they tell me to eat. And I allow my dear friend to go home, and I stay with the person that has the flat tire. And this is what I want you guys to hear, which maybe nobody needs to hear it. Is that the person that had the flat tire started talking to me. We were sitting and I was waiting. The person was going to come. And this was the first time in my life I looked at her and I said, "I am an introvert and I have been here since 9. I will hold space for you, but do you mind if we can just sit in silence?" And she was taken aback. You could tell it hurt her feelings. I mean, you could tell, and it would hurt mine too. I'm a sensitive person. My feelings would be hurt too. But I knew, guys, that love was to be there and to not let her be, alone. But I also knew that love was not using my words, that I probably needed to get quiet and hold the energy of safeness for her instead of the chatter that would have not felt safe for her, for me at this time. And we did that, and we stayed there for another couple hours, while the person came. He realized that her tire had a flat tire in it. And I was able to do it, guys. I was able to do it with love, asking for what I needed, because at that time I really did need to ask for what I needed, which is, please do not talk my ear off. I cannot handle this right now. Some you guys may have been able to. I just couldn't. And so yeah. And thank you guys. Thanks for being here. We all got to be at the Lake Texoma State Park today, with all the boats. We're thinking about our boating. So my question is for you guys to write on or to meditate is, how does doing service feel in my body? The service positions that I'm doing, how does that feel in my particular body? And what are some things that I feel like Mama, God, Spirit, Universe, Higher Power, Jesus, whatever, Allah, whatever you want. What are some things that they are calling you to do? All right, and I'm gonna mute myself.
Thanks for recovering with us.